There is a specific kind of person who keeps choosing the more difficult version of something, even when nobody would blame them for choosing the easier one, even when the easier option is smoother, quieter, more efficient, and in many ways more sensible. And if you know what that feels like, then this might already be about you. Because some people move through life trying to remove friction from it, trying to automate every inconvenience, trying to make every experience more seamless, more optimized, more forgettable. And then there are people who do the opposite. People who still want to feel the mechanism. People who do not just want the result, but the process. People who would rather participate than merely arrive. At first glance, this kind of person can seem stubborn, romantic, maybe even a little irrational. They hold on to rituals that the rest of the world has quietly abandoned. They develop strange loyalties to things that ask more from them. They defend habits that no longer make practical sense in a culture obsessed with convenience. And from the outside, it is easy to dismiss them as nostalgic, resistant to change, or simply too attached to the past. But this isn't really about manual 90s cars. It never was. Because when a man still daily drives a manual car from the 1990s, what you are often looking at is not just a transportation choice, but a psychological statement, a worldview, a relationship to effort, control, memory, and meaning. The car is only the visible object. The real story is the type of mind that chooses it every single day. A daily driven manual from that era is not effortless. It demands attention before the day has even fully begun. The clutch has a feel to it. The shifter has a mood. The engine has its own language. And if you ignore it, it reminds you that it is still mechanical, still physical, still capable of resisting you. It asks for timing, coordination, patience. It asks you to stay awake. Even on the most ordinary drive, it refuses to become completely invisible. And that matters more than people think. Because one of the strangest things about modern life is how many people feel detached from their own actions. They click, swipe, tap, outsource, and automate so much that the world starts to feel like something that happens around them instead of something they are actively shaping. The psychology term for one part of this is internal locus of control, which simply means the degree to which a person feels that their life is influenced by their own choices rather than by outside forces. People with a stronger internal locus of control tend to feel more responsible for outcomes. They want to understand the mechanism, not just enjoy the effect. They may even tolerate more effort if it means they get to remain involved. That is often what a manual 90s car represents. Not just driving, but authorship. Not just movement, but participation. A refusal to let every meaningful experience be flattened into pure convenience. Of course, not everyone who drives one thinks about it in those terms. Most would never say it out loud. They might just say the car feels better, more honest, more connected, more alive. But those words point to something deeper. They suggest a person who does not want life translated too many times before it reaches them. Someone who still values direct contact. And this is where the behavior starts to reveal the person. Because the guy who still daily drives a manual car from the 1990s is often not just attached to the car itself. He is attached to what the car preserves in him. A certain alertness, a certain self-reliance, a certain version of masculinity maybe, but not always the loud or performative kind. More often, it is the quieter kind, the version built around competence rather than display. The kind that takes satisfaction in understanding how things work, in fixing what can be fixed, in maintaining rather than replacing. That kind of person usually learned early that involvement creates attachment, that when you have to work with something, you become bonded to it in a way convenience can never reproduce. And this applies to more than cars. It applies to homes, tools, crafts, relationships, even self-respect. People value what they help sustain. Effort has a way of creating meaning. This is one of those slightly uncomfortable truths about human nature. We often say we want ease, but ease alone rarely makes us feel fulfilled. In fact, many people become restless inside the very comfort they spent years chasing. When everything becomes frictionless, life can start to feel strangely unreal, as if nothing is asking enough of you to prove that you are really there. That is why some men keep choosing machines that still require skill, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they distrust passivity. A manual car does not let you drift as easily into mental absence. It keeps you in the loop. It rewards sensitivity. It punishes carelessness. And over time, that becomes more than a driving preference. It becomes a philosophy about how a person wants to meet the world. There is also something deeply revealing in the fact that it is from the 1990s, because that era occupies a very particular emotional space in the mind. It was recent enough to feel familiar, but distant enough to feel complete. Late enough to be modern, early enough to be mechanical. Many of those cars were built in the narrow corridor before everything became too mediated, too insulated, too digitally managed. They still carried imperfections out in the open. The steering spoke more. The cabin told fewer lies. The machine had not yet learned how to hide all of its rough edges. And for many men, especially those whose childhood or adolescence touched that era, these cars are not just objects. They are emotional time capsules. Maybe their father drove something like it. Maybe a neighbor did. Maybe it was the first car poster on the wall. The first sound that made them turn their head. The first thing that taught them that machines could have character. Memory has a way of attaching itself to texture, to smell, to sound. The click of an old shifter. The smell of worn cloth seats. The slight vibration at idle. These details do not just remind a person of the past. They restore a version of themselves that existed inside it. And this is where daily driving becomes important. Because storing a car is one thing, but using it every day is another. To preserve something as a hobby is safe. To integrate it into your ordinary life is intimate. It means the attachment is not decorative. It means the meaning is active. It means that in the middle of traffic, on a boring Tuesday, in bad weather, half awake, late for work, this person is still choosing contact over convenience. That says a lot. It often says that this person does not separate meaning from routine as sharply as others do. He does not believe that life only happens in grand moments. He wants texture in the daily experience. He wants evidence that ordinary life can still contain ritual, skill, and taste. He does not just want weekends to feel alive. He wants Tuesday morning to feel alive too. And yet, there is another side to this psychology. One that is less flattering, but more honest. Because sometimes the man who refuses to let go of an old manual car is not just preserving meaning. Sometimes he is preserving a self-image. Sometimes the car becomes a defense against time. A way of saying, consciously or not, but he still belongs to a world he understands. That he has not been fully absorbed into the modern softness he distrusts. But he still knows how to do something fewer and fewer people can do. In that sense, the car can become identity armor. There is ego in that, of course. There is status in being difficult to replace. There is pride in possessing a skill that younger people may never learn, and older systems no longer require. But that pride is not always shallow. Sometimes it grows from a real fear that if every difficult thing disappears, then part of the human being disappears with it. Not just the skill, but the mindset that came with the skill. Patience, timing, mechanical sympathy, responsibility, attention. Another uncomfortable truth is that people do not only mourn lost things, they mourn lost ways of being. And often, when someone clings to an old machine, what they are really clinging to is a mode of existence in which they felt more capable, more grounded, more legible to themselves. That is why these men can seem unusually loyal, even when the car breaks, even when it leaks, even when it becomes objectively unreasonable. To outsiders, it looks impractical. To them, it feels like fidelity. They are not just repairing a vehicle, they are protecting a relationship. And relationships, even with objects, are rarely rational in the narrow sense. They are built from repetition, frustration, forgiveness, memory, and care. In a world that increasingly encourages disposable attachment, that kind of loyalty can look almost irrational, but it can also look deeply human. There is a concept in psychology called pattern recognition, the mind's ability to detect structure, rhythm, and meaning in repeated signals. In simple terms, it is how people learn to feel what comes next. A person who lives with an old manual car develops this almost unconsciously. He notices a change in idle. He senses a weaker bite point. He hears a slightly different note on cold start. To many people, these are meaningless details. To him, they are information. The machine teaches him to pay attention, and over time, that attention becomes part of his character. People like this are often reading more than they say, not just in cars, but in life. Tone changes, energy shifts, small signs that something is off. They may come across as reserved, but they are often highly perceptive. The habit of listening closely to systems can spill into the way they understand people, work, risk, and themselves. And maybe that is why this topic reaches beyond car culture. Because even people who have never touched a clutch understand, at some level, what it means to hold on to something difficult, because it keeps you in contact with a deeper part of yourself. The world tells us constantly to make things easier, smoother, faster, simpler. And sometimes that is wisdom. Sometimes convenience is mercy. Sometimes technology does free people. But there is also a quiet cost when every challenge is removed before we can meet it. We lose the chance to develop a relationship with effort. We lose the private satisfaction of skill. We lose the feeling that our hands, our timing, our judgment still matter. So when you see a guy still daily driving a manual 90s car, what you are often seeing is not just nostalgia, not just performance, not just stubbornness, but a person trying to keep one small corner of life from becoming generic. A person insisting that everyday experience should still ask something of him. A person who would rather cooperate with imperfection than be carried by something too polished to need him. And maybe that is why these people can seem strangely calm in a world built for acceleration. They are used to managing rhythm, used to listening, used to accepting that smoothness is something earned, not assumed. They know that control is not the absence of resistance, but the ability to move with it gracefully. The deeper question, then, is not really about what kind of car a person drives. It is about what kind of life they are trying to preserve through that choice. Whether they are avoiding the present or protecting something essential from being erased by it. Whether the ritual is a prison or a form of self-respect. Whether what looks outdated from the outside might actually be a disciplined refusal to become passive. Because everyone has some version of this, some object, habit, ritual, or principle that no longer makes obvious sense to the world around them, but still feels necessary. Something they keep choosing because it reminds them who they are when life becomes too efficient to feel real. So the real question is not why some men still daily drive manual 90s cars. The real question is this: what are you still holding on to? Not because it is easy, but because without it, you would become a version of yourself you no longer recognize.